All right. It's April 25th, 2019. It is Thursday. I just got off work and grabbed my dog. Figure I'd bang one of these out real quick before we do the show later. So I've been watching KJ. Shouts out to KJ Robinson from, I always want to say Chicago. He's from Detroit. Same shit. And I was watching him because he's much better than me at comedy. And trying to analyze him, figure out what he's doing that is that's making it work. Like what is it about how he's performing on stage? And in short, it's confidence and being yourself, and like being yourself, being confident about who you are. And I guess the first step to that is figuring out who you are. And I'm in a place now that I'm single and I can worry about myself and just focus on myself. I'm able to figure that out, and I've been piecing together this puzzle that is me. I've been figuring out who I am, which has been helping a lot with comedy and bringing out my own personal voice when I'm on stage. But then it's about confidence in who you are. And that is a really hard thing to do on stage. Like, this girl came out to, one of the open mics recently. And afterwards I was talking to her and I was asking her like how she felt about it, what she thought. And one of the things she said was that everyone pretty much touched on the same topics. Everyone was pretty much the same. Talking about your dick, being offensive for offensive sake. She wasn't offended, but you know when someone gets up there and says stuff just to be shocking and whatnot. And everyone just sounded the same. And I think that's because a lot of us are still don't have our voices yet, and I'm still trying to figure out mine. And then when you do find your voice, so then being confident in your voice. And I think that part of that obviously comes from time. I think I was talking to Joe Beltran and Jonathan Tynes, shouts out to both of them outside of Worthington's about this. And they view they perceive me as overanalyzing. Which, I don't know, probably, but if I didn't overanalyze, I wouldn't have this podcast. I don't think I would be as far as I am in comedy as I am, and I still have plenty to go. And I think that overanalyzing is part of who I am, and I think I'm accepting that is part of my voice, is just overanalyzing. I think it's fun, it's interesting, it gives me something for my brain to do all goddamn day. So I was just overanalyzing, trying to figure it out. Confidence, and being yourself. So then I was trying to figure out a strategy. So like Beltran was saying, well, that's just going to take time. KJ's been doing it for a while, so he's just grown used to being on stage, and it's time. And I agree, it does take time, and the more you do it, the better you get. But, I mean, if I can speed up the process, I don't see why that would be a bad thing. So I was just trying to find different angles, trying to figure out what strategies and techniques I could use to be myself on stage and be confident within myself on stage. Which is harder than you would think. Like, you get on stage and it's kind of like when someone shoves a camera in your face. You become a heightened version of yourself. Like, you're not just being you. And KJ's still really, really good about just being him. When he's off stage, it's pretty much him. And so I was trying to figure out what, strategy, what I can do to be confident in myself on stage. Then I figured I would think about, like, when am I most confident off stage? Like, when do I feel most comfortable, most myself, most in control? And I realized that's with women. Like, when I'm on a date or when I'm, trying to hook up with a girl is when I feel most confident and most comfortable in myself. And I think a big part of that is because I spent years literally studying and figuring out how to do that. And now that I've figured out how to do that, I look back and I'm like, fuck, I wish I'd spent all this fucking time on stand-up figuring out how to be a good stand-up. I'd be a really good stand-up comedian had I spent all of that energy on stand-up and not learning how to have sex with women, but whatever, we're here now. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about where my mindset is and what my body language is like and how I speak and my cadence and everything when I'm just talking to women. And so I've been applying it. I've been applying it to when I do stand up a little bit, and it's actually shockingly, it's actually working. So if I could give a bit of advice to anyone listening that is trying to figure out not only how to be confident on stage, but to have your own voice on stage, I think one of the ways to do that is just think about when you are most confident off stage and then treat it like that. So I've just been treating my sets like I'm on a first date with the audience, and how would I act if I was just trying to talk to a girl, basically. So far it's working, so I'm happy about that. Like, I feel calmer when I'm on stage. I feel like I can be quiet, and that's okay. Like, silence is fine. Feels more comfortable. Yeah, and it doesn't feel as performancy. And that was the other thing I'm sure I've said this in a podcast before, but I'll repeat myself, and that is what KJ seems to be doing is he's presenting his jokes, but they don't sound like jokes. Like, if whoever listens to this, next time you hit up an open mic, watch the comedian, like watch how they sound, and they all sound like they're performing. They all sound like, I am telling jokes right now, and you know that the telling jokes voice, the like, even if someone's not being, like, everyone's, when you watch someone first do stand up, they even have it. They have this voice of like, I'm talking to you about this, and because I'm talking to you about this in this particular way, it's gonna be funny. And it's even if it's not funny, it's just there's that voice, that cadence, that faux confidence. But in reality, people don't talk like that. Like, that's not how I sound when I'm talking on the podcast, when I'm talking to my friends. I don't sound like I'm telling jokes. And I think we could all work on that. I think that's something that could use some improvement. Is if you obviously you write jokes, but if you present your jokes as though you are not telling jokes, I think that leaves it creates a better result. Like, so when a joke doesn't hit, like, well, again, I'll use KJ as an example. When his jokes don't hit necessarily, it doesn't feel awkward. It doesn't feel like a joke that didn't land. It just feels like a funny guy who is talking about funny shit, and that part just happened to not make me laugh. It's hard to explain, but there's a comfort in it. Like, it doesn't make everyone tense up. It feels fine. So that's been good. And see, I've been talking to him a lot more, and it's been helpful. And the other thing that's been helpful about this new mentality is I think about, like, what do I do when I'm hitting on girls or whatever? And I started to realize that I was listening to Bill Burr's podcast, because of course I was, and he was talking about how he was watching Jim Norton, and one of the things he learned from Jim Norton was, like, you don't have to bite the head off of the audience immediately. You don't have to attack them. There's this weird thing when someone's talking in the audience. There's this weird instinct to want to just bite their fucking head out, take them down, when it's like, well, that's going to do is make them hate you more and potentially make you lose the audience. So I wouldn't do that if I was on a date. So I started treating it more like I was on a date. And so this past Tuesday at the Hideaway, I went in with that mentality, and it actually work. Now, I'm not going to say it was going to work every time. This is still a work in progress of what I'm trying to develop here. But as I was opening it up, I was hosting or whatever, and there was a big table talking, and then the bar's talking in the back. We ignore the bar at this point. They're just going to do what they're going to do. But I needed that table to pay attention because they were closer to the stage, and it was impossible for the audience to hear me. So I started talking to them, and I started asking them questions, and the way I used to do it, when I would do stand-up, is I'd be like, I think I asked them if they had ever been cheated on. And I think the tone or the cadence I used to sound like was like, have you guys ever been cheated on? Have you been cheated on? Like, it just, And so this time around, it was just, I can't even do, it just sounded like the way I'm speaking now. It was like, hey, have you guys ever, ever been cheated on? Have you ever experienced that? And they were hesitant at first, and they're like, no. And instead of biting their head off, which would, again, have been my instinct prior, I I used yes and. I think I talked about that a little bit, and I was like, yeah, that's good. They said no, and I said, yeah, that's good that you haven't been cheated on. And then I went into material, and that it kept them a little bit engaged, and I lost them again. Then I got them again. I was asking them if they went to college, what college they go to, and again they were getting kind of. You could feel like they wanted to attack me, and so their responses were short, and they were a little aggressive, and I just kept calm, and I kept treating it like if I was on a date. And, if you're on a date, obviously no one's going to respond that way. Or I would hope no one would respond that way so quickly, but you just don't, you want to charm them, or at least I want to charm them. You want to make them feel like we're on the same team. And attacking them right off the bat doesn't help that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Working on finding my voice still and learning about myself. But in terms of being confident and comfortable on stage, the new mentality that I have is when am I most comfortable off stage? And that seems to be when I'm hitting on women. So I'm just going to keep, I'm going to keep that mentality in mind. And I think that's a good strategy for now. So I ran the light. Time to go do a show later.